My wife left me for first love. When my wife was undergoing artificial insemination for first love, who was suffering from cancer, I left with a divorce agreement. Before leaving, I left a message under their sweet photo on WeChat Moments. Let's get a divorce, and I'll make room for you. 1 minute later, she called and said, Michael, can you please stop being so selfish? Can you bear to see him die without an heir? I replied with a sneer, I don't love you anymore, what does it have to do with me? But she was anxious. On our wedding anniversary, I asked my wife to go home early. Her usually indifferent expression briefly revealed a little surprise, and then she just nodded silently. That night, I prepared food and cake and sat on the sofa waiting for her until the early morning. She never came back. Sophia and I have been married for 5 years, and we have only been husband and wife in name only from the beginning to the end. She is the only daughter of the Sophia family group and the future heir. And I am just an adopted son that Sophia's grandfather picked up from an orphanage 20 years ago. I have known Sophia since I was 8 years old. That was the first time I was brought into Sophia's family by Sophia's grandfather. Years of urban life made me feel so out of place in front of a wealthy family like the Sophia family. Every move he made was reserved and cautious, for fear of doing something wrong and upsetting others. Despite this, Sophia still helped me integrate into this family step by step, and she took care of my poor self-esteem. To this day, I still remember the day when Mr. Zhong asked Sophia and I to get married. I was ecstatic and thought it would be worth it even if I died that day. Even though everyone around me said that I was not worthy of her, I still plunged into it resolutely. Let me ask you, who would miss the opportunity to embrace the bright moon in the sky? I sat on the sofa and watched the clock on the wall point to 12 o'clock, but there was still no news from Sophia. I couldn't help but call her, but the only response I got from the other end of the line was a cold, electronic female voice. Just when I couldn't wait any longer and was about to go out to the company to find her. David sent a photo, in which Sophia was hugging him while he was wearing a hospital gown, and they looked very intimate. They looked like a loving couple. Below the photo is a message from David. I'm sorry, Michael, I'm sick and Sophia is with me. The hospital needs quiet, so I muted her phone. David's message shattered the last bit of hope in my heart. I should have realized long ago that Sophia never loved me. I have always known that Sophia is not my moon. Just for a moment, the moonlight really shone on me. I couldn't help but start to laugh at myself, laughing at the fact that I had been her husband for too long. It's been like this for so long that I've started to get carried away. I didn't reply, but just walked into the kitchen silently and reheated the food that had already gone cold. I swallowed this extremely bitter dinner mouthful by mouthful with the cake. In fact, I have long understood that Sophia loves David. David is her sweetheart whom she has loved since her teenage years. One is a beautiful and well-mannered daughter of a wealthy family, and the other is a famous figure on campus. And I am just an adopted son of the Sophia family who hides in the dark and cannot see the light. No matter how you look at it, they were supposed to be a couple, but later on Sophia's grandfather didn't agree with them being together. I was able to get this bargain only after David left sadly. On my 18th birthday, I made a wish that Sophia would look at me more, and later she married me. Now that I'm 28 years old, I just ask her to let me go in the few days I have left. At the same time, I let myself go. A year ago, David, who had been missing for a long time, suddenly appeared. What was different from before was that his still handsome face now had a hint of sickness. After Sophia learned that he had cancer, she began to devote all her heart to him. On weekdays, as soon as I finish work, I will go to the hospital to take care of him. I was originally insignificant in her eyes, and now she was even more oblivious to my existence. Occasionally I would call Sophia back for dinner, but all I got in return was her scolding without a trace of warmth. You just spend the whole day talking about these trivial matters. Do you know how miserable David is in the hospital alone? Honestly, why don't you get the disease and let David suffer for nothing? Without waiting for my answer, he hung up the phone. Sometimes Sophia even looks at me with a hint of resentment. Maybe she hated me for agreeing to the marriage proposal from Sophia's grandfather, hated me for making David angry and leaving. But no matter what she thinks of me, it doesn't matter anymore. Because, just as she wished, I was diagnosed with bone cancer half a year ago. I kept putting it off telling Sophia because I was afraid she would think I was showing weakness to her again and trying to gain her sympathy by backing down. The funny thing is that even God thinks I'm redundant. During the past 6 months, my condition began to deteriorate rapidly, and the chemotherapy that used to be once a month became twice a month or even more often. The pain that penetrates into my bones torments me all the time. But I still persisted. I wanted to live a little longer and look at my moon again. It was not until that day when I had just finished chemotherapy and was shaking in pain on the hospital bed that I looked at the circle of friends that David posted on my phone. Thank you to my angel for sending me a little angel when I needed company the most. Below is a sweet photo of the two of them. At that moment, I only heard a loud bang in my mind, and my heart seemed to be pulled with pain. Even the residual pain from chemotherapy is not even a fraction of the pain I feel in my heart right now. The girl I have loved for more than 10 years and married to for 5 years. She actually gave birth to children for another man, even if it meant breaking his heart and liver. I know it's time for me to let go, and I have prepared the divorce agreement. Sophia seldom comes back on weekdays, and I won't play the fool to trick her into coming back. That's why I chose our wedding anniversary as an excuse to call her back. I told her my decision to divorce, and also told her that I didn't have much time left. Unexpectedly, I underestimated Sophia's ruthlessness and overestimated my position in her heart. I put the things on the dining table away, went back to my room, packed my luggage which was less than a box, and left the house. I didn't bring anything with me when I entered Sophia's family, so naturally I can't take anything with me when I leave here. Thinking that I have been searching for a decent home all my life. Now that I am about to die, I realize that being clean and alone is actually quite good. After doing all this, I placed the key to the house and a divorce agreement on the dining table. Sent Sophia a message. The divorce agreement is on the table. I'll make room for you. He turned off his cell phone, closed the door, and left without looking back. Half a month later, I went to the hospital to complete my last chemotherapy of the month. On the way to deliver the medical examination report, Sophia happened to come with David for the checkup. Are you pregnant? I asked casually. No, Sophia came with me for the checkup. Thanks to Sophia, I was able to recover so quickly. Seeing that I looked unhappy, David explained in a way that made things even more obvious. That's great, I haven't congratulated you yet. Before I could finish, Sophia, who had been holding David's arm, interrupted me. Michael, what the hell are you doing and why aren't you answering the phone? Also, what does divorce mean? Who allowed you to get a divorce? Are you planning to leave the house with nothing? Why, now you're here in the hospital to win me back, are you trying to play a trick on me? Sophia's series of questions made my already unclear mind even more uncomfortable. Thinking about the chemotherapy that was about to begin, I ignored the two of them and walked straight into the doctor's office. Mr. Michael, this is your last chemotherapy this month. Given your current physical condition, we recommend that you start hospitalization after completing this chemotherapy. The doctor looked serious. Considering my current physical condition, no matter how stupid I was, I understood. I have been running out of time. I nodded and told the doctor that I wanted to think about it and finish the chemotherapy first. After discussing with the doctor, I walked out of the doctor's office and prepared to enter the chemotherapy room. Sophia at the door pulled me away. David was left looking at us with an unwilling look. Michael, what are you doing? Are you serious? Sophia crossed her arms, her eyes still as dismissive as always, with a hint of doubt in them. Otherwise, at this point, is there any need for me to lie to you? I waved my hands helplessly and just looked at her indifferently. Then why don't you say it? You've been dragging it on until now. Are you waiting here to make me feel sorry for you or? Do you remember our wedding anniversary half a month ago? I wanted to tell you that day, but where were you? Sophia, who was suddenly interrupted by me, looked stunned, as if she couldn't believe it. In fact, this was the first time in my life that I interrupted her. I used to be happy for the whole day just because I said one more word to her, but now I just feel like it's a nuisance. Her words were nothing but constant neglect and endless ridicule towards me. She really thought the world revolved around her. Even though I haven't gotten my divorce certificate from Sophia yet. But in my opinion, she and I have been strangers since the divorce agreement was drafted. After suddenly realizing this, I suddenly felt that I was actually more indifferent than I thought. Once I think I have no relationship with someone anymore, I will also completely cut off everything with him. Whether it's a relationship or a love. How deep my love for Sophia once was, how deep my indifference towards her is now. At this time, the nurse in the chemotherapy room called my name and asked me to go in for chemotherapy. Hearing this, I turned around and left. Seeing that I was about to leave, Sophia hurriedly asked, "What about my grandfather?" As soon as Sophia said this, I immediately understood what she meant. In order to get Sophia to marry me, her grandfather threatened her with the heir of Sophia's family. Now that I want a divorce, I naturally have to give an explanation to Sophia's grandfather. Don't worry about that. I'll make it clear to him. After saying that, I left without even looking back at her. In the past, I always watched Sophia's back as she left. Now, no more. After chemotherapy, I stared at the ceiling of the hospital ward with a blank expression as usual. The white color makes people feel cold. It reminds me of the morgue where my adoptive father's body was kept 20 years ago. Everything there was equally hopeless. As far as I can remember, the only person who has been with me is my adoptive father. My adoptive father makes a living by driving a taxi, and the neighbors say that he is a bachelor who is nearly 30 years old and still unmarried. I am an orphan abandoned by my biological parents since birth. At that time, I was still an infant and was thrown at my adoptive father's door like garbage. Seeing that I was as pitiful as he was, my adoptive father took me home. For the next 8 years, my adoptive father and I depended on each other. Although life was difficult at that time, it was one of the few happy days in my impoverished life. Perhaps, I was destined not to live a peaceful life. When I was 8 years old, my adoptive father went out to work the night shift in the rain and never came back. All I remember was being led into a very cold place by a group of people in white coats. The cold body of my adoptive father just lay there straight. No matter how hard I cried, he would not get up and hug me like he usually did. Patting me gently on the back, telling me not to cry, that everything would be all right. After my adoptive father died, the neighbors around me avoided me as if I were the plague. I became an orphan again and entered the orphanage as my final destination. The night is long, but the sun will eventually rise as usual. On the second day after I entered the orphanage, Sophia's grandfather came to the orphanage in person and took me back to Sophia's family. "Child, what's your name? Will you come back with me?" "My name is Michael." My adoptive father didn't have much education, but I always heard him repeating in my ear that all he wanted was to have peace for the rest of his life. After he finished speaking, he smiled at me. That smile made me feel as if my adoptive father had returned. It was this smile that made me plunge into a world that did not belong to me. It was also in this world that I met the person I had been pursuing for most of my life. When we first met, Sophia was wearing a white princess dress and sitting on the piano chair in the middle of the huge living room. Her jade-white fingertips kept playing moving notes. At that moment, I looked at her like a madman. Perhaps because my eyes were too intense, Sophia looked at me and then walked towards me with a smile on her face. "You must be the new friend Grandpa mentioned." "Hello, my name is Sophia." Sophia means like. As he spoke, he reached out his hand, held my hand, and took me to visit every corner of Sophia's family. At that time, I didn't ask for anything and didn't want anything. I just wanted home and love. Even if I die, I don't want to be abandoned again. Thinking about it, I unconsciously held Sophia tightly back. Just like a drowning person clinging to the only life-saving straw beside him. In the days that followed, Sophia was like my little tail, following me wherever I went. In her words, "I am the only person in this family who is willing to play and fight with her, and I am her best friend. We absolutely cannot be separated." In this way, Sophia and I became closer and closer. Sometimes, the colder a person is, the more he wants to be close to warm things. Sophia is gentle and warm, like a ray of sunshine that illuminates my originally barren life. When I am with her, I always feel the long-lost peace and tranquility. Therefore, I will never forget what she said to me: "This is your home from now on, and I am your family." But when I hear this sentence now, I just find it extremely ironic. The door of the ward was suddenly opened, bringing back my thoughts that had long drifted away. The person who came was Sophia's grandfather, and I immediately got up from the bed to greet him. "Michael, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you tell me? I heard from Sophia that you are still asking for a divorce. Tell Grandpa what bad thing she did and I will teach her a lesson for you." Although I had some resentment towards Sophia, Sophia's grandfather treated me like his own grandson and never treated me badly in terms of food, clothing, and other expenses. "Grandpa, I'm sorry, I have bone cancer and I don't have much time left. I don't want to delay Sophia any longer. After this chemotherapy, I plan to leave here. I want to go back to see my dad again. It can be regarded as a return to my roots. I'm grateful that you didn't abandon me and took me in all these years. I'm also grateful that you married Sophia to me. But in the end, I'm still unlucky. I left a card at home. It contains the money I've saved over the years. They are all worldly possessions. Think of it as the last thing I can leave for you." I said everything I wanted to say in one breath, regardless of Sophia's grandfather's attempts to stop me. I got out of bed and knelt in front of him and kowtowed 3 times. Seeing me like this, Sophia's grandfather quickly helped me up and put me on the bed. He looked at me with a complicated expression, as if he wanted to say something but stopped. After a moment, he slowly said, "Michael, there is something that has been stuck in my heart for 20 years. Now that I see you like this, I feel really bad. I was also responsible for your adoptive father's car accident. I was in a hurry to attend a meeting, so I crossed the road at the intersection and ended up colliding with your adoptive father's car. That's why. Sophia's grandfather's voice was choked when he said this. Hearing this, I felt as if an invisible hand was tightly strangling my throat. At that moment, I wanted to say something, but when the words came to my lips, I couldn't say them. The questions that had been buried in my heart for more than 20 years seemed to have been answered at that moment. Why did the wealthy Sophia family choose me among so many children in the orphanage? Why is it that even though Sophia's family clearly looks down on me, Sophia's grandfather still treats me as his own grandson? What I thought was God's favor was actually a disguised form of compensation from others. In fact, there were signs of everything already, but I didn't dare to believe it, nor did I want to believe it. Poor me, I still thought it was God's mercy to me, and He couldn't bear to let me drift like a floating duckweed without support. The only person who loved me died when I was 8 years old. Of the remaining people I love, one sees me as an enemy, and the other only uses me as a tool to atone for his sins. There is no greater sorrow than a dead heart. Extreme sadness instantly spread throughout my body. My body, which was already in great pain from chemotherapy, became sluggish at this moment. The next second, I felt my consciousness gradually blurring out, and I knew nothing. I don't know if it was an illusion, but at that moment I was about to lose consciousness completely. I seemed to see Grandpa Dew's anxious eyes. How wonderful it would be if all this were true. If I hadn't forced others to love me so hard, would I have ended up like this? When I woke up again, the doctor looked at me helplessly, and Sophia's grandfather was no longer there. Mr. Michael, I have told you many times that your current body is not suitable for excessive emotions. Was that your family member just now? I have already told him about your current condition. If possible, we recommend that you arrange surgery as soon as possible. Of course, I have discussed this matter with Sophia's grandfather. He said that he respects your opinion and that if you want to have the surgery, the expenses will be fully borne by Sophia's grandfather. The doctor talked to me a lot, but I just kept mumbling, respect my opinion. I understand completely. It seems that Sophia's grandfather thinks the same as I do. No matter how many years we have been together, I am always just an outsider in his eyes. That Sophia's grandfather is not my family member. I am just an adopted son who is being fostered in someone else's home. Hearing this, a trace of sympathy flashed in the doctor's eyes, and then he said, the results of the examination are not optimistic. The bone lesions are very serious. The chance of success of the operation is 20%. If we can go to the Capital Hospital, it may be higher. Without waiting for the doctor to finish, he said in a deep voice, Doctor, just tell me directly, how long can I live? The doctor pursed his lips and said, without intervention, it will take 3 months, or even shorter. My heart sank, but I sighed and said with relief, 3 months is enough. Although this time is not long, it is enough for me to finish what I want to do, and maybe even steal a half day of leisure. Doctor, I have decided not to have the surgery. The doctor was about to say something, but when he saw that I didn't look like I was joking, he realized something. Mr. Michael, you are still young. No matter what the outcome is, your life is your own. I forced a smile, nodded to thank the doctor, and said no more. The next day, after I packed my belongings in the ward, I signed the discharge agreement. After doing all this, what I didn't expect was that David actually contacted me and asked me to meet. I had no intention of getting entangled with him, but his behavior was really annoying. On second thought, I have come to this point, and some people and things should also come to an end. On the third day, David arranged to meet at the cafe that Sophia often went to. As soon as we met, I looked at David's rosy face and spoke lightly. Mr. David seems to be getting better. It seems that he will recover from this illness soon. David ignored my polite greetings and just took out a list from his bag. It clearly stated the test results that Sophia was pregnant. Sophia is already pregnant with my child. I came to you to persuade you to divorce Sophia as soon as possible. As for the price or requirements, I'll let you name them. You don't want Sophia to have no name or status after giving birth to the child, do you? I suppressed the pain in my heart and tried my best to make my tone sound calmer. Miss Sophia and I have divorced. The agreement is in duplicate. Do you need me to show you the electronic copy? Mr. David, what you need to understand now is that it's not that I don't want to divorce her, but that she doesn't want to divorce me. Oh, maybe Ms. Sophia forgot. Then please remind her, Mr. David. I pronounced the last few words very heavily, but my voice still trembled unconsciously. Unfortunately, even now, I still have a glimmer of hope that Sophia will not agree to divorce. Without waiting for David to say anything, I immediately turned around and walked away quickly, as if something was chasing me. Now, I just want to leave this place as soon as possible and go to a place where none of them are there. That night, I bought a flight ticket to my hometown. The next day, I boarded a plane back home. And this time I'm going back to my real home. Only after returning to the home where I once lived with my adoptive father did I completely relax. Although this old house is already dilapidated, it is a rare place where I can put my whole heart. After briefly cleaning the place, I had a rare good sleep, and the pain deep in my bones seemed to be relieved a lot. The next day, I changed into all black clothes and went to the cemetery where my adoptive father's ashes were kept. Before I went to see him again, I found the cemetery manager and bought a piece of land for myself. When I die, I don't want to go anywhere else. I just want to be buried next to him. Since we were not destined to be father and son when we were alive, I want to be reunited with him in the underworld even after death. In fact, when I grew up, I also thought about moving my adoptive father's grave to the city. Now that I think about it, the pace of urban development is too fast and too noisy. I don't think he would like it. In the past, I didn't know who buried my adoptive father here, but now I sincerely thank him. It's quiet here, a good place to rest, and I think my adoptive father will like it too. Even though the doctor had repeatedly told me not to smoke, drink, or eat spicy food. Now, I don't care about many things anymore, I just want to do something according to my heart. For example, now, I brought a bottle of his favorite wine, sat in front of his grave, and drank one glass after another with him. Dad, I'm back. My son has grown up. You won't fail to recognize him, will you? You know, the Sophia family that got you into trouble later adopted me, and later they married their daughter to me. Dad, you should blame me. If I knew it was them, I would never. Under the influence of alcohol, I poured out to him everything I had experienced over the years. As I was talking, thinking about what I had gone through over the years, I burst into tears. For so many years, even though he knew Sophia had never loved me, he never cried. But this time, I don't know what happened, but the tears couldn't stop flowing out. Dad, you know I'll be able to see you soon. We'll be able to meet soon. Dad, don't blame me. I also want to seek justice for you, but I don't know what to do. Can you tell me what I should do? I drank one glass after another, and when the alcohol started to take effect, I fell straight down beside the grave. In a trance, I seemed to see Sophia's figure. When I woke up again, I found myself lying on the bed in the old house. Sophia was there too, and when she saw me wake up, she came to me and asked if I was feeling unwell. Seeing her being so attentive, I couldn't help but frown and was about to ask her to leave. Sophia spoke first. David came to see you, he was talking nonsense, I'm not pregnant at all. I know now that he has been lying to me. He is not sick at all. He just wants to. How do you know this place? I interrupted Sophia and just wanted to know how she knew this place. Since I went to Sophia's family, I have never mentioned this place to anyone. Seeing my bad tone, Sophia stammered like a child who had made a mistake. I'm sorry, I didn't intend to follow you. My grandfather told me about this place. Michael, I was wrong. I was really wrong. I love you. You are the one I have always loved. Please don't divorce me, okay? I will make it up, I will make up for everything, as long as you forgive me, I will do anything. Now I know everything, Michael, listen to me, let's go back for treatment, you will be fine, you will be fine. Sophia said as she pulled my arm and shook me, repeating that I would be fine. I don't know if she was comforting me or herself. I let out a long sigh, gently pulled her tightly clenched hand away, and said slowly, Miss Sophia, we are done. You are only embarrassing both of us now. As I said this, I made a gesture to ask her to leave. Seeing my indifference, Sophia stared at me with disbelief in her eyes. Yes, in the 20 years we have known each other, I have never been so heartless to her. In the past, as long as she wanted something, I would pick it for her without hesitation, even if it was the stars in the sky. But now, everything has changed. Seeing that Sophia still refused to leave, I lifted my legs and walked out. I walked very fast, and when Sophia saw me leaving, she quickly followed me. Maybe I walked too fast, or maybe I drank too much yesterday, my bones started to ache again. My pace gradually slowed down, and soon Sophia caught up with me and hugged me tightly, as if she was holding a rare and fleeting treasure. In the early morning, a gray mist was falling all around the streets. The visibility with the naked eye was only a dozen meters. Looking forward, there was no pedestrian on the road. Further away, it was completely hidden in the fog. It was as if there were only the two of us left in this entire space and this entire world. One stood stiffly where he was, while the other held on tightly, refusing to let go. Carrying their own unspeakable pain, they pressed their bodies against each other, yet their hearts were separated by thousands of miles. Perhaps it is because a person is about to die that his actions are good. In the end, I couldn't make up my mind and let Sophia stay. I let her sleep in the bedroom and I slept in the living room. I gave up. Perhaps I am destined to be entangled with her until death. Fortunately, she never makes trouble for me, and she takes care of all the housework at home. When she has nothing to do, she will stay quietly by my side. Later, Sophia began to learn how to cook, but she seemed to have no talent in this area. During this time, I happened to run into David coming to see Sophia. As for what they talked about, I don't know and I don't want to know. The two of them had a big fight, and Sophia ended up slapping David hard and telling him to get out. After that, I never saw David coming again. My body quickly deteriorated after I stopped chemotherapy. I ate less and less, and the pain in my body became more frequent. Every night I would curl up on the sofa in pain. Cold sweat soaked my clothes and I bit my lower lip tightly to prevent any sound from coming out of my mouth. Later on, walking became increasingly difficult and I needed a wheelchair to help me move around. I think maybe Sophia also knows my current situation, otherwise I wouldn't have seen her red and swollen eyes when she woke up in the morning. But what can we do? Nowadays, we have to live day by day to make money. It is October again, and the osmanthus tree at the door of the house is already full of osmanthus flowers. At this moment, I closed my eyes and quietly felt everything around me. I greedily enjoyed the last bit of beauty that the world had given me, took a deep breath, and then exhaled it slowly. The night breeze, with its unique coolness, rushed into my nostrils carrying the fragrance of osmanthus. So I moved the rattan chair where my adoptive father often lay to the osmanthus tree outside the house. Sometimes I lie there for a whole day. I often smell the fragrance of osmanthus while thinking about the past times I spent with my father. I fell asleep before I knew it, and slept from noon until the moon was high in the sky. At this time, Sophia, who had been watching my movements not far away, would shake me awake with a look of horror. When she saw me wake up, the expression on her face eased a little. I am strong and I can't die. I pulled up the corners of my mouth with great effort, trying to make my expression look as normal as possible. However, when Sophia heard me say this, she used this incident to persuade me to go back and continue treatment. However, I am very aware that my own body has already run out of energy. No matter how good the treatment is, it's just a way for me to survive. Rather than this, I might as well just live in peace. What's more, the pain caused by chemotherapy is no less than that caused by bone cancer. Seeing that I was rejecting her proposal, Sophia fell on my knees and cried like a faucet. Because she knew very well that I could never handle women's tears, especially hers. Seeing this, I helplessly reached out my hand and patted her shoulder gently like I was coaxing a child. Just like that, one afternoon after I rejected her countless times, my mind suddenly went blank and I fell to the ground in the yard as if I had lost all my strength. Sophia, who was not far away, saw me faint and immediately ran over to help me onto the rattan chair. I stayed awake and said to Sophia word by word, "Sophia, I suddenly want to eat wontons. Can you go buy them for me?" Sophia saw that something was wrong with me and seemed to realize something. Her eyes suddenly turned red. Okay, I'll go buy it now. You wait for me. You must wait for me." After saying that, he turned around and ran towards the wonton shop. When I saw her leave, I immediately closed my eyes as if I was deflated. In my mind, all the past events between Sophia and I kept flashing before my eyes like a kaleidoscope. After all, my life was not worth it. He was abandoned by his biological parents as soon as he was born. My adoptive father who took me in later died a violent death. After entering Sophia's family, he finally married his beloved and thought he finally had a home. But she didn't expect that it would ruin her original marriage. Sophia is not satisfied, and Michael is not happy. I really want to smile bitterly, but now I can't smile at all. Gradually, my consciousness began to blur, and the pain that penetrated deep into my bones disappeared. At this moment, I realized that I was going to leave. This day came so quickly that I was not prepared at all. I haven't even eaten the wontons Sophia bought for me. I don't know how long it was, but suddenly Sophia's shouting came from a distance. This sound made my originally chaotic consciousness a little clearer, but this body still couldn't move. I used all my strength to open my eyes a tiny slit. I saw Sophia running towards me with wontons in her hand and a happy smile on her face. That smile is as dazzling as when I first saw it. That one glance cost me my life. After Michael died, Sophia did not go to his funeral. She just asked the crematorium staff to cremate his body and bury it next to Michael's grave. Because she was afraid Michael wouldn't want to see her underground. When she was alive, everything she did was enough to make him hate her. She didn't want to be hated by Michael even after she died. After that, she burned everything related to Michael. It was so clean that it was as if this person had never existed in this world. After everything was settled, Sophia and Sophia's grandfather said they would leave for a while and never showed up again. Even the company's own people didn't care anymore, which made everyone in the company anxious. Later, Sophia's assistant found out after asking around. The president of Sophia's family became superstitious at some point and heard that the church was effective. I went and prayed to God all day long. There was not a single witch there who didn't know her. Everyone who has seen her said that this woman is very strange and doesn't say much after entering a place. Just take out a pair of destinies for people to look at, and ask them whether this pair of destinies are compatible. Among the witches that I have seen, some have good reviews and some have bad ones. If the person said yes, she would take out a stack of money, thank him and leave. If the man said it was not good, she would not get angry, but would just take out a stack of bills from her bag and hand it to the man to ask him to recalculate. It doesn't matter whether it's really good or not, as long as I can get this answer. She would always leave satisfied. Seeing how obsessed she was, some people guessed one or two things and began to persuade her. But to calm people down, if there are things that are bothering you, it is better to resolve them as soon as possible. Hearing this, she didn't answer, but just looked at him and smiled. It's so creepy to watch. Over time, people stopped trying to persuade her. Every time I see her, I think that this pair of people are a match made in heaven. After these words were spoken, the woman in front of him seemed to feel much better. Later on, no one in that place saw her again. Not long after that, Sophia died. He was hanged on the osmanthus tree where Michael often stayed. When the police arrived, they found an incomprehensible pattern drawn under the body, with a line of words written next to it. Goodbye.